What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay here to talk some Green Bay Packers as we're getting closer to the Thursday kickoff against the Detroit Lions. I've got the previous matchup rolling here in the background, just kind of getting reacclimated with how that game flowed. Tim, it's just wild, man. We'll get into all of it, the preview and the injury report and all that good stuff. But there's only a minute left in this game. And a minute left in the first quarter, and Green Bay's winning 3-0, man. I know you were at the game. It's funny how we forget this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that was a great example of Detroit kind of coming into Lambeau and having an agenda, and they did not deviate given the conditions that day and the way that game was flowing. Detroit never wavered, and I think that's ultimately why they ended up getting us that day. But yeah, I mean, for a while there, we looked really good, and I think going into this week's matchup, we have to realize that that's not the same Lions team, and this isn't the same Packers team. Just a few short weeks removed from that game, so it'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday night. But Jared Goff's one of those guys that, you can pressure him and get him to make some mistakes. However, the problem is he's getting better at dealing with pressure and getting that ball out fast. So it's going to be another game that kind of like we talked about going into Dolphins week, right? You don't want to blitz too much. You want to apply pressure and be selective, but you don't want to get caught rushing, 5-6 guys too often, because you can get ate up with that short pass game. So we'll see what happens this week, though.
Yeah. And again, the biggest play in that game, if I remember correctly, was the pick six during the middle eight, where you lost the middle eight and the turnover differential in one play. Absolutely huge. If that does not happen, totally different outcome, obviously. Let's do this, Tim. Let's go to the chat first, and then we're going to get into the injured reserve list. I know I told you guys we were going to pull that. I found that information so we could kind of see the last time the Packers played, who has went on injured reserve since then. We'll also talk about the Detroit Lions' most previous opponents too, because that matters as well. They're kind of on a heater, outscoring a ton of. There was one game they scored 50-some points. I want to know who were those teams, right? How well are they playing? All that good stuff. And also, we'll kind of recap a little bit of the Bears Lions there on Thanksgiving Day as well, kind of how that game went. Because really, it's more the Bears losing than it was the Lions.
Really, the Bears.
The Bears still suck.
Bro, I was watching a YouTube show earlier today, just a few minutes ago, and it was kind of Bears insiders giving the inside take on them changing OCs and then the Matt Eberflus firing. You talk about dysfunctional. Oh, my God. Like the running game coordinator not agreeing with the OC, and then once the OC got promoted, they ended up changing the running game. It was a wild conversation. So when I say once the OC got promoted, I'm talking about once the assistant got promoted to OC. That makes sense. The running game coordinator underneath him was disagreeing. It just sounds like there's total chaos in that organization. I honestly don't think firing Matt Eberflus is going to fix anything. It's going to take them scrapping it and getting somebody in there that knows what the heck they're doing. I honestly, as a Packers fan, hope that they hire the OC as the head coach. I really do. What worries me as a Packers fan looking at the Bears organization is if they strip it down and get somebody at the very top that knows what the hell they're doing, that would worry me. Hopefully Ryan Poles stays there. Hopefully whoever's running football operations stays there, and they just promote their OC to head coach, and I would be like, all right, there we go. We're good. We're okay for a few more years. But if you see a big name come in there like a Vrabel or a Belichick or someone like that, probably.
Yeah, well, they had every opportunity to try and get a Harbaugh to coach them.
Could you imagine Jim Harbaugh there? Oh, my God. Like, imagine what the Chargers are doing right now. I'm talking about fundamental football, bully ball, playing aggressive up front. They go out and they rebuilt the offensive line. If they had done that in Chicago, we'd probably be sitting here going, damn, how are we going to beat these Bears?
Exactly. Because, I mean, you look at that Chicago roster. I mean, there's talent everywhere on that roster. And it's just a lot of youth and talent and not a lot of leadership. And that's why they're struggling. You got to think if you had a Harbaugh in there, you're right. They might look a little bit like the Chargers look right about now.
Yeah, exactly. Cheesehead Murph in the house says, "Yay, yay!" Ice Cube voice. I think I got that right.
We be clubbing in the morning.
Somebody's
Cheesehead Murph.
Somebody's going to cut that, no doubt. Mrs. Green in the house says, "First like of the show. I can call my day a success now." I don't know. This show sucks, Mrs. Green. I don't know what to say.
Not on to the missus. She already got caught up on all her work from the holiday. So I guess she's already successful, doubly successful today.
That's what I'm talking
Mrs.
about.
Green. Love you.
Nick McSwain was watching old LaFleur interviews from last year, and crazy the kind of stuff people were saying about him. And this year, people are saying he's one of the best coaches in the league. It's wild. Listen, I won't name names, but there were people calling for his job. Now, ironically, it's the same people, and I mentioned this in the chat, it's the same people that are all the Packers are a slam dunk playoff team now. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the 6 and the 7 seed. They go from that attitude to when things go wrong and you hit a slump, fire everybody, scrap everybody, everybody's horrible. It is frustrating, and I try to just tune it out. But, yeah, you're right, Nick. A lot of people calling for his job. I kept trying to point out last year, too, like, look at his winning percentage, guys. Like, he is amongst the greats. He's literally not. He's top or not now all time in the history of the league. It's just crazy.
When we moved on from Mike and we started that hiring process, I can remember having conversations with fellow Packer fans, friends, and family. And my whole point during that process was the Packers better absolutely nail this hire, because if they don't, it's not gonna be a good look for us for the foreseeable future. And of course, looking back, clearly the Packers, in the words of Andrew Baines Bernard, nailed it on that hire. So here we are.
Bro, it's so true. Like, I felt, you and I didn't know each other when that hiring happened, obviously. I felt exactly the same way. It was like, man, are we really scrapping Mike halfway through the season? This dude's won a Super Bowl. You see him, I know he's had a rough year in Dallas. He's probably going to lose his job, but you seen what he did as soon as he got the Dallas bank last year, 13 wins, right? Like, hell of a coach. And then they hire LaFleur, and you look at his track record, and I'm going, boy, I don't know about this. I know Sean McVay's coaching tree is kind of the hot thing right now, but that doesn't mean all of them are going to be good coaches. Boy, we upgraded with Matt LaFleur. And
there were talks of Josh McDaniels during that time.
Yes.
Man, talk about dodging a bullet.
Yeah. And Mark Murphy was the one who made that hire. There's still people that think Goody made that hire. Goody did not just go out and handpick a coach. That's a different structure. The structure changed, right? Yep. Mark Murphy was spearheading it. And I'm sure he got Goody's opinion on it and all that good stuff. This was Mark Murphy making a move. I remember at the presser saying that, like just ramping up Matt LaFleur, right? And what's crazy is who hired Goody as the general manager? Mark Murphy. Mark Murphy looked through the resume and said, all right, well, I want everybody's scouting reports on my table by Monday morning. I want to know who said what about the players in our organization. And he said, hands down, Goody was just nailing the scouting reports, right? So that's how he ends up getting the GM. Mark Murphy, man, I'm so glad he's going to the Packer Hall of Fame next year because it's so well deserved, man.
Absolutely. And hopefully the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio as well at some point.
No doubt, man. All right, let's see here. Prince in the chat. Watching all that football yesterday has me raring to go for Thursday night. Could be the game that starts to tighten up the top of the NFC. It really is. And again, I'm looking at this game, and we're losing 7-3 right now in the second quarter. Going forward on fourth down from roughly our 38-yard line. I'm not sure if we got it here, but this was such a close game until that pick six before halftime. And again, I know many people disagree with me. Like you remember me in the chat, Tim, I was going off. I'm like, why are we being it's piss pouring in the rain. Why are we being aggressive right before halftime? And when I say it doesn't mean you just come out and nil on the ball. What you do is you call a couple of easy conversion plays, short passing plays that could turn into yak, or you call a draw play, you call a running play. And here's the way it works. On first down, when you're like under a minute or under 2 minutes, it's okay. You don't want to lose the middle late. You do not want to lose the middle late here. That's going to control the moment of the game. Perfect example of how they just ran away with it after that. What you do is you come out and you call one of those high percentage plays that are safe with ball security. And when you do that, let's say you gash them for 12 yards. All right, now we go. Yep. Right? If you get stuffed or it's a 2-yard gain, let the clock run, run off 30 seconds, give the other team hardly any time. Then you go, okay, let's see if we can convert. If so, we'll call a timeout. We'll go hurry up, and then we go.
Yep.
But
trying to put yourself in a position to take shots, whether that's a end zone shot or getting that field goal or something. But it's usually dictated by those first couple downs and, what you're going to be able to get. And if you get too overly aggressive too quick, we see what happens, right?
Yeah. And then what did we do? We called a shot play. We called kind of one of these shot plays. And Jordan's trying to roll right. You had a busted protection. You're just trying to make something happen, and he ends up throwing a pick six, right? So, and next thing you know, now the boat race is on. Now you're playing from behind the entire game, and I'm not talking about a 7-3 deficit. We're talking about 2 scores, right? So,
yeah, and with a team like the Lions, banged up or not, heading into this game, this is not a team that you're going to lose the middle 8 and lose the turnover battle and win. It's not one of those games. We've seen it a few times this year with this Packers team, lose the middle 8, lose the turnover battle, win the game. I just don't think you're going to do that against the Detroit Lions. I just don't see it happening. We've got to play proper football, proper Packer football on Thursday to get this dub.
Nick McSwain in the chat says, kind of sucks. Packers have 3 games in 12 days. Then Biz comes in and says, one more game and then finally a mini bye. But yeah, can be tough, but they are playing their best football right now. I guarantee those guys want to go out there and play about every other day the way they're competing right now.
Yeah.
When we look at that too, let's take a quick glance at that, Uncle Shannon. And so here is the remaining schedule. You're at the Lions, obviously on Thursday night, December 5th. You're at the Seahawks the following Sunday. So that's that mini bye we're talking about, right? You're going to get Friday, Saturday, an extra 2 days to rest and kind of recoup there before you go to Seattle, across the country, play Sunday night football. Then you come back the next week and you get an extra day off, right? Because you play on Monday night football at Lambeau against the Saints. Then the following day is going to be, or the following week is going to be 1 day shorter of a week where you're going to travel to Minnesota on Sunday for a 12 Central kickoff. And then, of course, the to be determined is week 18 against the Bears. That still has not been announced at the moment. So, yeah, there's give and take there, right? There's pros and cons to that entire situation. Like, you're going to get an extra 2 days off before the Seahawks game, right? You're going to get an extra day off before the Saints game, and then you lose a day coming back. I don't know about you, Tim, but when I look at that schedule, I think it played out just about as well as it could, considering we're having to go across the country. At least we're getting that extra day to recoup that time having to travel,
Absolutely. And that this happens to every team, right? Every year you get these points in your schedule where it gets a little, as Matt LaFleur would say, a little wonky, if you will. And obviously, if you're one of the top tier teams, you're going to get those primetime games. You're going to get Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night games a little more often. And it gets a little tricky. But, bottom line, I think what you said is, extremely accurate. We're tuned up right now, man. We're ready to play. We'll play 5 games in 5 days right now. This team is ready to get out there and get after it. And, if anything, you want to make sure your guys are healthy and focused, and game plan is tight, because intensity is great. Being fired up is great, but you can get into a position sometimes where all of that energy, we've seen it with Packer teams before, where, man, that first quarter we look lights out and then we forget to finish ball games. We use up all that gas too early, and adrenaline has a tendency to wear off sometimes. So I think keeping guys healthy and focused down the stretch is going to be the key, because we got 5 games left. 3 of them are on the road, and regardless of how the schedule shapes out, we got to be at our best.
Yeah. Randy Cleaver's in the chat. Things are coming together at the right time. Momentum is in our favor. I mean, it really is. It feels like things are kind of starting to click. I'm excited about it down the stretch, no doubt. When you look at the playoff push here in terms of the standings, right now, Detroit is the 1 seed. Philadelphia Eagles are the 2 seed. Seattle Seahawks are the 3 seed. The Atlanta Falcons are the 4. Minnesota Vikings are the 5. The Green Bay Packers are sitting in the 6 seed with a 9-3 record. The Vikings just ahead of them in the 5 seed at a 10-2 record. So it's definitely possible the Packers take over that 5th spot. It's still possible for the Packers to win the North, but just looking at best case scenario to worst case scenario, the Washington Commanders are the 7 seed at 8-5. And then after that, you've got Tampa Bay Buccaneers 6-6, Arizona Cardinals, and the Los Angeles Rams also 6-6, and then San Fran and Dallas at 5-7. So essentially what you've got is worst case scenario, you've got a 3-game lead for the 7th seed. Okay. Best case scenario, if you beat Detroit this week and you win out and they just hiccup in a couple of games, you could potentially win the North. It would take Minnesota hiccuping a couple of games as well. But we got Minnesota again coming up. If they lose one more game, we could somehow win out, figure out how to do that. We're going to end up with a minimum of the 5 seed. But, Tim, again, when you look up at this season, we were talking about in the preseason, I said 10 to 13 wins. And then it was like 2 or 3 weeks in, it's like, okay, we're feeling really good about that 12-win range, right? A couple of times it drifted back to 11. A couple of times it jumped back up to 12. Right now, I feel comfortable saying that 12 is very doable. I mean, we're sitting here now. We're sitting at 9-3, right? Let's look at the schedule one more time. Let's say that we do beat the Lions somehow, some way, right? That'd be 10-3, right? You beat Seattle, that's 11-3. You beat the Saints, that's 12-3. You got 2 more games to potentially hit that 14 mark you were talking about, right? Now, If we're being realistic and we say the Lions are the best team in the league, we're sitting at 9-3. We lose to them, we're 9-4. Let's say we lose to the Seahawks, right? And we're 9-5. We beat the Saints, that's 10-5. You beat the Vikings, that's 11-5. You beat the Bears, that's 12-5. We're right there in that range. So 14 is still on the table, obviously, right? But I think that probably 12 wins is probably right around where we're going to finish. You're probably going to lose a couple of these games, I would imagine.
Right. We're at that point where we're looking at, what's possible and what's probable, right? And those are probably 2 different things right now. So, I was the one with the arrogant, lofty expectations.
I loved it, man.
14-3. And, I mean, hell, if we win out, man, we're there. But, is it crazy to say you almost hope we hiccup, in the next few weeks rather than riding a hot streak and then possibly, getting bounced in the early rounds of the playoffs, So I just hope we don't drop any divisionals. Let's beat Detroit. If we hiccup against Seattle or New Orleans, that's fine. Beat the Vikings and the Bears and close that year out strong. Same thing with winning the North, right? Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I don't know. It certainly looks better if we hand Detroit their second loss here on Thursday, because that's huge. And then somehow, some way, Minnesota needs their 3rd loss. And if it has to come at the hands of the Packers in, week 17, I'll take it. But bottom line, like you said, man, 3-game lead, hold the tiebreaker over a couple teams when it comes to that final wild card spot. So, regardless of how things shake up, even if there's some kind of regression, we're still more than likely 90% chance to make the playoffs here, and that's all we need. You saw how we ran last year, right? You just got to get in, and that's when the whole new season starts. So looking forward, man. It's going to be an exciting finish, and the scheduling committee knows exactly what the hell they're doing when they create these
they do, man,
this type of vibe. I mean, here we are again. I believe it's the second or 3rd year in a row we're ending with 2 divisionals back to back to round out our season. So shout out to the scheduling committee.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways that I kind of look at this. If you beat the Lions on the road Thursday night, you're creating momentum. I think the play is pedal to the metal, carry that momentum through the playoffs, right? You're trying to ramp it up. Now, listen, there isn't a team out there. Don't get me wrong. There's not a team out there going, let's lose this game. That's not how it happens. I'm simply saying from a fan standpoint, what would be the best situation? If you lose a game before you go into the playoffs, boy, it gives you an opportunity to reality set, humble pie, reset everything, and then gear up for the playoffs, right? That's a real thing too. So what if we went and beat the Lions, right? And let's say you beat the Seahawks and you beat the Saints. And then what if you lost the last 2 games of the season, 17 and 18 there, to the Vikings and the Bears? That might be one of those things where you're still in the playoffs. You just won 3 more games. You're at 12. You're probably going to be the 6th seed.
Right. Then you go on a 3-game win streak and go to the Super Bowl.
Exactly. That's what I was getting. It's like, that's something that could be real too. Like, boy, you talking about giving coaching tape and LaFleur and that coaching staff to be able to go in, and anyone who is, reading their own press clippings to kind of get humbled and then go after the main prize. That would feel a lot like 2010. And again, these are not predictions. We're not saying this is going to happen. We're walking through different scenarios and how momentum is created and also lost. Like, for example, if you came out this week and you lost to the Lions, you lost to the Seahawks, right? You lost to the Saints, and then you beat the Vikings and the Bears, you're creating a little bit of momentum going into the playoffs. The problem is, though, how much confidence does your team have in the fact that, well, we just beat the Vikings and the Bears? They're not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know the Vikings have a great record and all, but it would be, if you lose to the Lions, it does kind of feel like, man, we're probably not built for this playoff run from a player standpoint. I could see that kind of creeping into the background. So
I think the other thing though, Clay, is like, think about some of these games, right? The Bears, the Jags game, the Texans game. There were some of these games where we kind of felt like we lost, but we somehow ended up walking away with a dub. And so we get the dub and we get those humble pie slices and we get those lessons and extra hours in the film room, getting ready to correct mistakes. So, maybe there's that kind of scenario too. Maybe we squeak a couple of these out that maybe could have gone the other way and we still get the advantage of, like you said, kind of eating your words and learning a little bit of hard lessons, but, not taking the L.
Right. Biz in the chat says lose against the Vikings and the Bears, I think, will be more deflating than helpful. It's a great point, Biz. Again, just walking through all the different scenarios. So maybe it'd be something like you drop one of the Vikings and you just come out and annihilate the Bears. All right, we're on track, ramp up and go. It's just it's interesting. Everybody gets a little antsy toward the end of the season, especially when there's a tight race with playoff seeding, which there always is in the NFL. It's why it's king. It's cool to kind of look at this stuff and see, all right, what's going to come into play. And I do know this, man. I'm really excited the fact that we got the Saints and the Bears at Lambeau. Cold weather football. It's going to be a great thing, a great way to kind of showcase, hey, the end of the season, if indeed that is the last home game you're going to play. Now, if we look up in Week 18, here's another scenario. We look up in Week 18 and we're playing for the division, meaning if we win that game, we win the North. If for some reason the Lions hiccup and we're in that position, boy, you talking about a hell of an atmosphere knowing we would get one more game, a playoff game at Lambeau.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be mean here. You guys know I am an Aaron Rodgers. I love Aaron Rodgers. I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. But Jordan Love and the youngest roster in the league playing in a cold weather game, a lot different than Aaron Rodgers, aging quarterback. I know, boys, listen, I'm 42. When I walk outside, my bones hurt now. I know what they mean now, but when you get older, you get colder. It is a fact. You feel a little bit different about that. Like Jordan the other night, it was chilly, right? What was it, 25 degrees, 26, something like that? Didn't look like it affected these boys at all. If anything, they ramped up, man.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right, man. That'll have playoff atmosphere written all over it there, Week 18 at Lambeau against the Bears. And if it is for the North, you can believe that's going to go, 325 or 7:30, whatever, prime time kind of game of the week slot. And it's funny, that's why they leave it to be determined on the schedule, I'm assuming, because they know what they're doing. And if you look at the last matchup between these two teams, I mean, it could be a crazy game to round out the season. But you're absolutely right, man. I would love to see that play out. I'm kind of hoping that's the case. But again, like I've said all season, I don't think we're going to get help from many teams in the NFC, and so far that appears to be true. We only got a little help these last few weeks, and certainly none from the Lions or the Vikings. And I think we're going to have to beat these teams on our own if we want to leapfrog anybody in the standings here.
Yeah, now let's take a look at what the Lions have done here lately in terms of their schedule. Let's just go like this run that they're on, right? Here's a perfect example of teams that have momentum, want to create momentum, or might potentially lose momentum, right? They've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row now, right? So they're on a 10-game winning streak. Now, this last game, you were talking some games, some wins kind of almost feel like a loss, I guarantee you they're not ranting and raving over that Bears win where the Bears lost it at the end, right? Where they ink it out 23-20 on Thanksgiving Day. But when you look at the last few, let's go since the Packers, all right? November 3rd, they beat the Packers. The Lions beat the Packers 24-14. They play the Houston Texans. At Houston Texans, they barely beat them 26-23. They play a bad Jacksonville team, right? Beat them 52-6 at home, all right? Boat raced them. Then you're on the road at the Colts, another pretty bad team, 24-6. You win that game. And then Bears at home, you barely beat them 23-20. There's a trend there if you notice, right? Like it's almost like they peaked, in my opinion, around the Titans game, 52-14. Then the Packers game, they kind of start coming down to earth a little bit, 24-14, then 26-3. Then you absolutely boat race Jacksonville, 52-6. And then it's like, all right, the margin goes down to 24-6 against the Colts. Now it's down 23-20. And then you look at the Packers, and it's like, this kind of feels like the Packers got a shot to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at this schedule. Like, who have they beaten?
Right.
Who have they beaten this year? I mean, okay, the Vikings and the Texans. And that's probably the best two teams you've played.
Yep. You're right, man. You're right. So of those 10 games, I mean, think about it. Would you say these are good or bad teams? The Cardinals. When we played them, boy, the haters were, well, you just beat a bad team. That's all that was, right? Okay, so if they're a bad team, they beat a bad team there. The Seahawks, right? They're leading the division. I don't think they're a bad team, but they're not upper echelon, right? The Cowboys are an absolute dumpster fire right now.
Yep.
At the Vikings are a good team, right? That's a good win. The Titans, when we beat them, they're horrible, right?
Yep.
That's the only reason we beat them. The Packers, obviously a good team. You got, you're sitting here at a 9-3 record, so that was a good win, much like the Vikings. On the road against the Texans, Texans are a good team. The Jaguars stink, right? The Colts are pretty bad. The Bears are bad. Yeah, you're right, man. I mean, again, the last battle-tested game they had was the Texans, and they barely squeaked it out, 26-23. And then the most recent game against a horrible team in the Bears, they barely won that one, 23-20. I think we're catching them at the right time. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed win. There's no such thing in the NFL. But I know this Packers team is getting healthy, and they're on a freaking mission. Now, I do worry. I'm not going to lie. I worry a little bit about Jair coming back, because if there's freelancing going on, that can throw a wrench into what we're doing defensively. But also Jair come out. He typically is up for big games when he's in the lineup, right?
Yep.
You always got to say that. He's liable to come out and really tilt the field in the Packers' direction too. It seems like with the fan base, Tim, most of the fans they either love Jair or they really don't like him. There's not a whole lot in between. I like to think I'm in between, but I don't know how you feel about Jair coming back. You think that would be a positive, or it definitely in a negative? But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can kind of upset the card a little bit.
I can see how the excitement level can fluctuate a little bit with him, but I mean, look at our cornerback room right now, guys. Like, you're going to tell me you don't want 23 out there?
Yeah,
in
I
crunch
agree.
time? Like, come on. Like,
Yep.
let's be real here, and we'll see what happens going forward, right? We'll get to the draft talk and all of that stuff, and look at the talent pool, in the NCAA when it comes to corners. But I'm looking at this Packer team, and my alliance to Jair set aside, we need 23 out there. And like you said, we freelancing or not, man, sometimes it works, and boy, when it works, it looks great. And if it doesn't, it can kill you. But I feel a little better about our depth at the cornerback position, especially on the boundary. Especially, Jair coming back in the fold may allow things to kind of have a domino effect. You may be able to put Keyshawn back in the slot and start rotating our safeties a little differently and changing the way we approach some of these teams. You've got your hands kind of handcuffed if you don't have 23 out there to play on the boundary, and you're down to, Eric Stokes Jr. and you got Keyshawn sitting out there. Although all credit to K9, man, that guy's had a great year on the outside. I really kind of caught me off guard. I thought for sure return guy, slot guy at best. He's playing on the boundary, and he's playing pretty good football this year. So hats off to Keyshawn Nixon.
Yeah. And Rel in the chat says, don't forget Goff threw 5 picks versus the Texans. And again, our defense very, very similar to DeMeco Ryans' defense with the Texans. So going to be interesting, man. It's going to be a fun game. Again, another great measuring stick, no doubt about it. So that's how the Detroit Lions schedule looks currently. Now, the big talk, Tim, has been about the injured reserve, right? Like, okay, man, the Lions are really banged up. I wanted to walk through it here and give everybody an idea of how everything transpired, okay? And we're going to start with November. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson, October 19th, went on injured reserve. We played them after he went on injured reserve, okay? So what has changed since the Packers lost to the Detroit Lions in that monsoon over there at Lambeau Field? What was that? The first week in November, right?
Yep.
So So you had Jalen Reeves-Maben, linebacker. He went on injured reserve on November 9th. Then you had Derek Barnes, linebacker. He went on injured reserve November 13th. Alex Anzalone, another one of those hybrid backers, one of their best defensive players, hands down. He went on injured reserve November 18th. Then you have, I can't say his Afitu, I think is how you say it, Afetu, Melafanwu. I don't even know how to say his name. Safety. The Lions placed him on injured reserve on November 19th. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., your guy, Tim. Here's the guy, right? You remember this? With the draft talk. They placed him on injured reserve on November 24th. Khalif Raymond, wide receiver, he went on injured reserve November 27th. And in this most previous injury report against the Bears, they had Coyote Awasika, a guard. He was out. Taylor Decker, their offensive tackle, was out. Carlton Davis, the third cornerback, was out. Giovanni Manu, offensive tackle that we looked at during the draft process, he was out. Emmanuel Mosley, cornerback, out. Colby Sourcedale, offensive tackle, he was out. And then questionable was another guy that I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. November 29th. So here we are now, the 29th. Questionable, a knee injury. Josh Pascal, the defensive end, he suffered it on Thursday's 23-20 win over the Bears. Isn't believed to be serious, so he seems to be good to go. He's simply questionable. Then November 30th, just a few days ago, Malcolm Rodriguez, starting linebacker, he was placed on injured reserve. And then December 1st, yesterday, right? Mekhi Wingo, defensive tackle, was placed on injured reserve. So when Tim says these are two different teams meeting again, keep in mind the score was 3-0 Green Bay after the first quarter. All right. And obviously everything it fell completely off the rails in the second quarter, and the rest of the game, as they say, the rest is history. But since then, you're talking about them losing to injured reserve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 defensive players and 1 offense. So 5D, 1 offense. Then a 7 defensive players went to IR, and 1 wide receiver went to IR. This is a totally different team that we're getting ready to face, and it kind of adds up. It checks out with how they played against the Bears there on Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. And, when you look at the injuries and how they're going to impact this matchup, I mean, that Detroit offense is pretty much the same. Like you said, they're missing a few guys, but they have their weapons, and we know Detroit has the ability to put, 30, 40, 50 plus points on the board on anybody. So to me, it's going to come down to how this Packers defense plays against the Lions. And if we can be relatively mistake-free, if we can execute, if we can win the turnover battle and make some plays, get some takeaways and get points off those takeaways, I think we're in a good position. I feel great about Jay Love and our offense going against this banged-up Detroit defense. The question is, how do we deal with this Detroit offense? And I think right now we're humming, though. And, Quay Walker's playing his best ball at the right time. Really, that whole linebacking unit is playing their best ball at the right time, as well as the defensive front. And, I think getting Jair back, like I said before, getting Jair back in that secondary is going to be a positive. It is. It's a net positive. And, it's going to come down to this defense. I firmly believe it. If we go out there and we're, goal line standing them like we did against Miami, or we're keeping them, out of that red zone, or, getting stops in the red zone, making them take 3 instead of 7, that's how you beat a team like Detroit, regardless of the injuries. So it's just how I see it.
Yeah. And looking at some of the PFF grades, like Khalif Raymond, the wide receiver, 69.4, pretty good football player, right? Yep. Alex Anzalone was down to a 66.8, but still above 65. You're thinking, all right, that's a contributor. And he's a hell of a ball player. Just because it's a low PFF grade doesn't mean he's not a good football player. And then Malcolm Rodriguez was a 74.4 at linebacker. So these are players that are contributing, right? So I think it's just important to kind of keep our finger on the pulse there when it comes to, the injury report and the injured reserve. I know someone said in here, Prince says, hard to tell from this list how many are season enders exactly. But remember, they got to be on the injured reserve for 4 weeks minimum. Okay. Right. So that's the case. then obviously November 9th up till when we play, there's no chance of any of these guys coming off injured reserve, right? That went on since November 9th. So if I understand the rules completely there. So
and then
again,
keep in mind, coming off of IR doesn't mean you're going to hit the field in your next game either. So
yeah,
time will tell.
Yeah. Green Ranger says, I believe in this defense. I do too, man. Again, I'm sitting here looking at this and we're now in the I say the witching hour, not the technical witching hour, but this is the 1st and 10 play. I'm watching the game right now. 58 seconds left. We're down 10-3 right before halftime. And Jordan completes a pass there to roughly the 39-yard line. All right, now we're going to go, right? We're going to go. And this is, I think, the shot play that gets picked off, if I remember correctly. So it's a 2nd and 1 play. 43 seconds left. You got one timeout. And yes, this is going to be the play where Jordan just hooks it up the curve.
And this is exactly what you were talking about. 43 seconds. You got a timeout. It's 2nd and 1. Call the draw play.
Yeah.
Call a strong toss right. Get Tucker Kraft out there. Let's pick up 10 yards or 15 yards of yak or something.
Yeah.
But instead, we take the shot play.
And when we say shot play too, it's like you had a deep route down the sideline, you had a deep crosser, if I remember correctly, right? And they're not going to show the all 22 here, obviously on the TV copy. But the point is, if you're going to pass him, spread that thing out and work some spacing, work underneath. All right, let's take what they give us. Let's take what they give us. Don't try to get it on one play. Now, people would say that's on Jordan Love. I agree, that is on Jordan Love. But also from the play calling standpoint, you gave him a deep crosser and a go with a Y leak. Like, come on. That's you're giving them 3 options when you know they're going to get aggressive right now. They're not going to go into prevent defense when you show that kind of, that kind of split. Now, if you went spread, I guarantee you they go 2 shell and start to kind of play soft.
Field open. Yep.
And again, man, that's the thing. Now all of a sudden in 10 seconds you're losing 17-3. That's crazy.
Devastating against, like, this is what I was talking about before, against a team like Detroit. That's going to kill you. You know, we've gotten away with that a few times this year and still came out with a victory. The chances of doing that against, teams like the Eagles or the Lions, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen. You're going to pay for your mistakes. So you got to make as few of them as possible.
Yeah. And the play.
But I will say this though, look at Jordan since that game though. Like we talked about that, taking that shot or trying to get it all on one play. Ever since that game, we've started to see like a steady, slow improvement. And you see Jordan read, throw the swing, read, throw the check down, read, tuck it and run. Whatever it is, he's more decisive, and we're not putting that ball at risk as much as we were a month ago.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So there is your Detroit Lions injury report talk. I don't want to spend too much time on that. People get bored with it. I just wanted to point out this is a much different team now. There's no two ways about it. Let's why don't we wrap up here with a little bit more of the NFL Pro preview for this game. If I can get it to pull up here and everybody be able to see it on the screen. Give me just a second. Let me zoom out here just a touch. I wanted to kind of get a better look at how this is potentially shaking out. That's going to take a second. Let me see here. I was wanting to get the preview. You know what? Instead, why don't we do this? Why don't we dive into those explosive runs from Jahmyr Gibbs? We were kind of talking about that, Tim. We wanted to hit on that a little bit.
Yep.
Get this pulled up, and let's jump into that real quick. Let's go Jahmyr Gibbs. Again, he's got 10-plus explosive plays. 29 10-plus yard explosive plays. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it to the most recent game and see what they're doing schematically. There was 4 explosive plays for Jahmyr Gibbs in this last game, and we are in the end zone cam here. So let's dive into this tape just a touch here, make sure it doesn't narrow it down on you guys. I think we're good, right? Yeah, we should be good. Trying to get it to where it's zoomed out where I can see it enough, but it doesn't zoom too.
You want me to drop that ticker down? Is that
I think we're good. You can leave it
okay.
up. Yeah, appreciate it, though. All right, so here's the first one. This is against the Bears, okay? So remember we were talking about Matt LaFleur doing this the last game. You see they do. They come out, come set, and then they have a little double shift, and it's creating confusion there. So they're going to be looking to do that against the Packers. He canned out of something, so he canned into the run. He got deep 53 is the mock. Now notice they're in an over front. 1 tech weak side, 3 tech strong side, right? And they're probably, let's see if there's a cut back here. Nope, I'm going to stretch it out. So they ran right into the strong look. Okay. And Jahmyr Gibbs, listen, man, he's a hell of a back. Let's watch that one more time. For everybody on the pod, they went into a stretch run here. It's just a zone right. Kind of looks like it was designed to go beat that there.
Yeah.
And then he, look at that. I mean, that explosion right there. Holy cow, man.
See, that's ball carrier vision because you see the, was that a D tackle or a DN? 98 there, Chicago.
Yep.
Came through unblocked. I mean, if he cuts it back there, man, it's a 2-yard loss. So that's strictly on Gibbs there.
Yeah. Next play. Let's look at the down and distance too, if I can, real quick. I want to make sure. Does it show us here? Might have to go down. Down and distance. That play that we just showed was a 2nd and 7. Here's a 2nd and 8. So on 2nd and long, they really love to run football. Also, something to keep in mind too with Detroit, they will run it on 3rd and long because they're not scared to go for it on 4th down.
I love Prince in the chat. He has 30 explosive plays if you count the photo of their whiteboard.
That shot in. All right, here they are in a gun set. Once again, you see the pre-snap shift. They came out strong left. Now they're going to shift over. So we're sidecar right. So the T is on the strong side of the formation here, and let's see what the run is on this play. Just a little inside run, and you see Gibbs cutting back. Notice this backer right here got pulled in, right?
Yep.
That's not playing gap sound. 49 has got that gap. You've got to hold your water in this gap on the right. And then
again, ball carrier vision. He sees that and bounces it.
Yeah, definitely. Another explosive play there. All right, next play. And again, that was out of the gun. Here we are in the ace again. So look how they're using the splits. We're going ace, strong right, and you got a close split right here, almost like an extra tie in. He may chip. He may get out here and dig out a DB too. Let's see what happens. I'm going to use a little mock cheat. So they're faking the end around. You see they put him in motion. Goff could give it to him, could give it to the running back, or he can hand it on the jet sweep, right? And what that does is this guy right here, 31, eyes on the jet sweep, he's got to respect that, right? Goff could pull that out of the belly and give it there. Same thing with this edge defender. You can't get too far upfield, right? So he ends up giving it to Gibbs, obviously. We're faking the jet sweep. Gibbs through the hole. Another great run there, man.
Yeah, and you're right. You see it freezes those DBs because they have to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
That's that, illusion of complexity, right? We talk about this all the time,
Yeah. And now here we are. They're an ace and a strong left. So it looks like you've got 2 tight ends. So they're actually probably in 12 personnel, 12 ace strong left. Under center, he cans again, once again. Now notice safety comes into the box. You're playing an over. Again, an over is weak side defensive tackle, 1 tech. Strong side defensive tackle is typically 3 tech. But they've actually got it now to where it would definitely be considered an over, but he is in a 2-eye as opposed to a 1 tech. And they're bringing the safety down to help meet the run fit here. Let's see if they run strong or weak, because before they ran right into the strong aspect of that defense. They did it again. Look at this. They're running right at the strong point and then using the cutback.
And then the cutback, yep.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is a real deal. I hope he's suspended for this game, to be honest with you. I doubt he will be, though. So anyway, that was his most recent explosive plays. I wanted to hit on those to kind of get an idea of, all right, what is Detroit doing on the ground, right? You've seen 1 out of gun, 3 out of ace out of those 4 explosive plays from Jahmyr Gibbs. They're using a lot of pre-snap shift, and one of those 4 plays they use a little jet sugar to try to sell the jet sweep to keep the safety from really eyeing down into the box. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be really, really interesting, man.
It's going to come down to our prep in the film room, right? It's going to come down to realizing when Goff cans a play, what are we looking at here? Is he canning to the run? Is he canning out of a run? And the defense adjusting accordingly. Because if we get caught complacent, if we get caught, they're canning a play and we stay where we're at and everybody reacts to the original play, we're in trouble, and that's what Detroit does. They do that all the time. And then they'll fake that jet sweep. Like we saw in that first play, they'll fake that jet sweep. And then when you least expect it, or you think you got it keyholed in, they're going to run this again. All of a sudden they are running that jet sweep. And if you get caught biting, you're in trouble. And I just think this Packers D has got to be on their P's and Q's because, right now offensively, I think we got it, and defensively, we've been looking better in the run game. So going against this Lions front with Jahmyr Gibbs running the ball, not to mention, you're coupling that with their passing attack. They have weapons in the pass game, so you have to respect that as well. And Detroit is the type of team that's going to look to exploit those things in these matchups. So, we just got to play discipline in defense, right? You see it, you got to say it. If there's an alert, you got to call that out. I want to see a lot of pre-snap communication, whether that's Quay or whether that's X, whoever it is, relaying those calls. We have to be on top of the ball. And it's going to be loud in Ford Field. Like, that place is just like a concrete box of, decibel level. So we have to communicate pre-snap, and we have to be able to adjust on the fly, because Detroit uses that illusion of complexity as well as anyone else does in the NFL.
Let's see here. Deadfish in the chat. Taylor Decker is not playing in this game. He had been playing hurt and not good. He is not on ours, so he might be back for Thursday night. We're going to wrap the show up right now, but I will take a quick peek into PFF and see if we can figure out well, that really went wonky. So, yeah, Skipper, the guy who filled in, was a 50.9. So what Deadfish is saying here, keep your eyes on the injury report that drops today. What is Taylor Decker's status, right? Because their left tackle is not good. Now, the right side of their line, starting with the center, Ragnow, 89.7, second highest graded center in the game. Zeitler, 90.5, third highest graded guard in the game. And Penei Sewell, 89.5, the fourth highest graded tackle in the game. You wonder why they were running right just now? There you go. Reminds me of the old John Madden quote or comment. They asked him, why are you always running left? Why are you always running left? And he listed off his Hall of Fame center, his Hall of Fame left guard, his Hall of Fame left tackle. He said, why the hell would I not run left? So they're definitely strong on the right side, no doubt. Tim, you got anything else?
That's football at its finest, right, Clay? Like, you know what we're going to do, and we know that you know what we're going to do, and we're still going to do it anyway and challenge you to stop us. And that's the type of matchup we're looking at on Thursday. Both sides of the coin. Packers too. Detroit's got to prep for us too, right? Everybody's got to do their homework. And I think we're in for a treat on Thursday Night Football, much like the last time the Packers played in Detroit on a Thursday night. We'll just leave it at that.
Exactly. Ari Ironminer with a great question here. Have we beat a team with a winning record yet? Let's take a look real quick, okay? Who have we beat this year off these standings list? Is there anybody here that we have defeated? I know we beat the Cardinals. They're sitting at 500, right? We definitely beat them. The Rams are sitting at 500 as well at 6-6. So I don't think we have beat a team that has a quote-unquote winning record yet, right? At the time, they had winning records, obviously, but as far as currently, they do not. So that's kind of a little yin and a yang there. You're saying right now or when we actually played them, right?
Good news is Detroit hasn't done it too many times either.
Exactly. And when you get into that conversation too, boy, you can – as Pat McAfee always says, you can make stats say whatever you want them to say,
Yep. And it's like we talk about, right? The record is not a reflection of the team always, right? You are not your record. You need an example of that. Look at those mid-tier teams. Look at Tampa Bay. Look at Arizona. Look at the Rams. They're like Jekyll and Hyde. You never know. Yeah. They could come back, steal a win from you. They could boat race you. They could get boat raced. You never know.
Yeah, like Prince points out, we beat the Texans, right? They've got a winning record. They're in the AFC, obviously. I want to say the Colts have a winning record right now. I think they're lead. No, they're not leading their division. Let me see here.
They're 500 team also, aren't they? Or one game under 500, something like that.
Let me find out real quick. I got to know where it's going to drive me crazy. Let's go Colts. They won yesterday, so they are now 6-7. So they're definitely under 500. Okay. So, all right, but appreciate it, Prince. All right, guys, that's it. We're going to wrap up there. We will be back tonight, 7 p.m. Central, with the new injury report and give you guys any information that may or may not come out of practice today. And hopefully we get a little bit healthier. Keep an eye on Edgerrin Cooper when the updates come through. Let's see if he actually practices in a limited fashion or if he just stays on the bike. If he stays on the bike today, my guess is he's probably not going to play Sunday. But obviously with Jair coming back and now Romeo Doubs being back at practice, let's make sure he stays ahead of concussion protocol so he can get on the field there on Sunday as well. So, Tim, thank you for your time, man. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, Clay. I love being a part of this. Always down to do a show with you, brother.
All right, man. We'll see y'all tonight, 7 p.m. Central. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. And go Pack, go.
Thanks for watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Green Bay Packers content, created for the fans by the fans. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know whenever we go live. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Packers_Access. Go Pack Go. Have a great day.